Welcome everyone to this session with our friends from the AI Marketers Guild community and featuring Avishai Sharon at Trendemon, a really exciting company in the go-to-market space, and they've done some terrific research as well. And a company I've been talking to for a while. I've been looking forward to go and have on and share their views of what they're seeing. So. I'm going to hand the floor over to Avishai, but I just please ask just ask questions, chime in the chat if you've got something really burning. Like we'll have some more formal Q&A at the end where we're welcome you raising your hand and coming off camera. But anything you need, let us know. We'd love to hear your feedback and thoughts. And Avishai, I'm so excited to have you here and see what you have for us today. So all yours.
Thanks, David. Really a pleasure to be here and excited to share some of the findings that we have. Thank you so much for the community members for showing up. And like David said, feel free to ask me anything. We'll leave time at the end also for questions, but do feel free to kind of send them as we're continuing the session. I'm also excited because you're going to be the first audience that is going to get a glimpse of our buyer journeys, research trends, and benchmarks, which we release annually. So you're going to be the first ones hearing it, hot off the press. And I thought it could be a really good opportunity to share some of those key findings and discuss how they should impact our go-to-market in 2025. And of course, this being the AI Marketers Guild, I would also like to share how we are looking at leveraging AI to understand buyer journeys, to optimize them. And also for those who stick around, we have a special offer, free offer to gain access to very unique insights, which I'll be sharing in just a minute. So let's dive to it. We have quite a ground to cover. So just a bit of background on myself, co-founder and CEO at Trendemon. We are a website experience optimization platform. So we help B2B companies increase pipeline conversions from visits into revenue. Prior to that, I was leading a marketing agency. So struggling with the same thing that I think a lot of agencies or marketers are struggling, demonstrating ROI of GTM, ROI of content, all that. That's kind of what got us building Trendemon some years ago. And just to give a context of what is Trendemon and what it does and where we get our data that I will be sharing in this session. So Trendemon, as I mentioned, is helping marketers turn their websites from static assets into account-based dynamic digital experiences at scale. And I think one of the key challenges with B2B marketing is the overwhelming amount of work and the very little amount of time that there is. So when we're talking about personalization, a very big challenge is how to do this at scale. So if we just take a look at what we're doing here, Trendemon can de-anonymize website traffic through our partnership with 6sense. So we're using the leading de-anonymization data out there that's built into every Trendemon account. We have our own content attribution engine and journey mapping. And very simply, the way that Trendemon works, we reverse engineer successful journeys into pipeline and into one to be able to recommend future or new journeys and new accounts visiting the best content, the best experiences, and learn from that. And this is how basically we do this at scale and leverage insights and data to automate personalized experiences. So that's kind of in a very high level. And regarding our data, this is also the data that we'll be sharing about buyer journeys, about accounts, buying groups, engagement with content. So this is really the area that we love, that we're passionate about, and I wanted to share some of those key findings here. Just from a tech stack perspective, David told me, you do like to kind of get your hands dirty and look at the tech itself. So from a consolidation perspective, Trendemon is able to consolidate tools in different levels from page level journey sales. And we also have a very robust analytics layer, which is something that I will be sharing at the end because it's part of our free offering to the community, branded the GTM Compass. So I will share what that is and what it can do. And hopefully it should be helpful for you as well. So let's dive to it. We got through the introductions, so that's down. The talk itself is going to be broken down into essentially three parts. I'm going to start out, the majority is going to be about trends and benchmarks in 24, the key findings from our research. Then we'll be discussing the winning strategies for 25 based on those insights. So based on those takeaways from what we're seeing in the data, what would we recommend for 25? And more specifically, websites related and first party, because we're in a webinar related to first party data and how to make better use of it and how to leverage it. And then the last part, I will show a short demo of the GTM Compass, what you can learn from it and how to claim it. And then, of course, questions, but again, feel free to send them all along the session. So the way that kind of we are looking at different trends and benchmarks, so we've been doing this research for the good part about 4 years, almost 5 years now. And what I wanted to do this time is actually differentiate between which trends we're seeing persist or even accelerate versus which trends are actually changing direction this year. And then talk about how specific B2B websites are converting. That's something that always marketers love to understand, how they're faring against their colleagues and other companies. So what are some main statistics to look out for when we're trying to measure our website's performance in an ABM or a B2B related scenario? So from our sample size and data, working with over 150 B2B companies, we're looking at millions and millions of buyer journeys. And this gives us a very high level view of different trends from buyers as well as from the marketer side. So from sellers and from buyers, we can see those different trends, how they're developing throughout the year. And that's what we'd like to share. I wanted to start with the persistent trends. And this is something that we've been seeing continuously increase over the past few years. And this is the anonymity, right? So we talk a lot about buyer journeys, buyer-led processes, right? Buyers want to research on their own. It's not just us. We also see this from Sixth Sense Research, or Kerry Cunningham discussing about how late in the journey basically connect or de-anonymize themselves as they're engaging with sellers. From our data, what we can see, and this is already kind of the first benchmark that you can look at, is that out of all the known companies that visit the website, so again, first-party data, companies that we have de-anonymized through Sixth Sense, how many of them have an associated known contact? So somebody who filled a form, essentially. And that number has been dropping since 23 now to about 6%. And that's pretty much what we're seeing. So it only takes one person from a company to de-anonymize for the company to be for him to be in that group. And what they basically, and when we're going to talk about the buying committee that has 13, 14, 15 people, we're going to see that that translates to a very low amount or low percentage of conversion to leads. So when we talk about benchmarking of conversion to leads, that's something that we can definitely need to take into account. So, and almost all of the insights that I will be sharing will be from an account-based perspective. So we're looking at companies visiting as opposed to just traffic or individuals or leads in that sense. Within the account, of course, we have the buying committee. So what we wanted to do is share some statistics about the behavior of the buying group of companies with associated sales opportunities. So just to give maybe a context of what these numbers mean and what where they're taken from. So we're looking at companies that through our integration with HubSpot, Marketo, Salesforce, we're able to understand if they have a sales opportunity related to them. And that's kind of the buying committee that we see, right? So a company that has a sales opportunity, we want to understand what is it made up of and how it's behaving. So in 2023, we saw 13 people on average from every company with a sales opportunity. That number increased in 2024. And we're going to give you our thoughts, but feel free to chime in also if you have different theories and theses about why that is. Always happy to hear it. If we talk about their website engagement, so 51 sessions versus 44, so that's a decrease in sessions and page reads. So if we just want to kind of have the takeaway from here is that we're seeing more people involved in a buying decision, but with less attention and reading less content. And I think that also something that we have felt ourselves, that we're seeing more people kind of being at the table. So for example, CFOs now, financial leaders are now taking a more active role in validating or being stakeholders in a buying decision than we've seen in the past. So the buying committee is growing, but the big challenge is that their attention is diminishing as everybody's. So they're going to be reading less content, reading less information. But these are the averages. If we're talking about now the seller side, so what are sellers doing differently or have done differently in 24? And here we've seen a very, I'd say, significant shift in direction. We've seen marketers go on the offense. So a big increase in paid ads, big increase in Google, LinkedIn, a whopping 580% increase in traffic coming in from those paid media. So it definitely, I think there's more optimism. Marketers are more bullish. And buyers are also reading more information, right? They're consuming more content. So we're seeing a big increase in organic traffic. However, what I would note is that I think we're seeing is that most of that content consumption is at the education stage. So what we see is companies kind of building their knowledge or educating about what they need. However, it is still not materialized into actual sales and pipeline conversion. So we're not seeing an increase in those conversion rates into sales and opportunities yet. And that is kind of a word of caution. And we're going to be talking about it when we discuss the go-to-market strategies. But these metrics are important because they basically tell us how many of the companies that are visiting our site are going to become sales opportunities or reach close one. And these are the numbers. So only
And
1.3% of identified companies.
and
Yeah, sorry, David.
I am just curious, seeing all this data, is is there some like cause and effect here where like the fact that there is so much more of a like proactive take from marketers that are, trying to do more to spend to acquire leads and reach their target audience, is that creating some of this noise that also at the same time makes it harder for those messages to break through, or I'm curious if like these different slides are directly related.
Yeah, I think if we zoom out a bit, right, we are in a very complex environment that is getting more and more complex. So we have a very, noisy environment with solutions, with service providers, vendors, sellers, and it's becoming, attention is becoming so scarce. And we're talking about decisions that take a long time, that have a diverse buying committee, very complex processes. And I think these trends are now starting to kind of come into this perfect storm that is becoming so hard to break into somebody's attention, let alone educate them effectively. And that is exactly kind of to what we're going to be talking about, how to mitigate or address those very massive shifts and challenges in capturing attention. I will note just something tactical about this. And that's something I think every marketer intuitively understands. The more traffic you're going to have, the lower the conversion rate, right? That's always kind of the physics of it. So one explanation that could be also regarding the decreasing conversion rates is just the fact that we have more traffic coming into those websites. So it's not all kind of bad news, but I do think that marketers are becoming more aggressive in going to market, generating more noise. That noise creates more complexity. And then the buyers are now at a position that they have to be very, very selective about who they engage with. And they do this only at a very late stage of their buying process. Does that answer that, David? Is that kind of the...
Yeah, that's great. And if you don't mind, there's one question that just came in from Lisa. Does the
Sure.
content consumption metric, which goes down, include video views or just written content?
So we're measuring written content. It's a great point. We're looking at written content on the website, including PDFs, less video. And I do think talking about strategies for 25 is that video content, short form content versus kind of long form that we kind of used to have and invest a lot in previous years are probably going to be a very big differentiator about our go to market in the coming years. So that's just about kind of the data itself. In terms of the conversion benchmarks that we're seeing from websites, again, from visiting company down to close one, if we want to kind of look at it from a journey perspective, we can see here a few interesting metrics. Over half of the companies that will land on our website, including our ICPs, are not going to proceed beyond a single page view. And I'm talking about a company level. So even if you have 5 people from that company, none of them will proceed to read another page. So it's a very challenging moat to cross, right? The first engagement. Then, of course, a very small percentage are going to reach high intent, and then we're going to have that into sales opportunities in close one, which I've shared previously. And so the challenge to move those ICPs from stage to stage is becoming harder. We're seeing those numbers decreasing. And that means that we have to be so much more contextual, personalized, relevant in every interaction that we have along that journey. So again, key takeaways from those main points from the research is that despite the fact that we have increasing investments from sellers in go-to-market, we're seeing a decrease in effectiveness, becoming much harder to penetrate, to punch through the noise. Conversion rates are still dropping. And so if we just kind of try to tie it into one key message that we have is that GTM success in 25 is not about more. It's not about just getting more traffic or doing more events or more content, right? Which now is just so much easier to create thanks to LLMs. It is about doing significantly better and different to be able to achieve that. And so we wanted to give a few examples of what that different looks like. But maybe before I kind of move into the next step, David, is there any other questions or?
I think we're good from the audience right now. Let's keep diving in, and then sure
Okay.
oh, wait. One
Sure.
question at the buzzer here regarding the conversion
Sure.
analysis. This analysis take into account volume of bot traffic on the open web. Great one, Phil. Thank you.
Yeah, so we're actually looking at account level. So every visitor that we have, or we're looking at companies visiting. So we're discounting, of course, bot traffic. So we need to have companies who are either ICPs. We're not taking into account bots or ISP, so no internet providers, or not just identified companies.
Great point. Yeah, especially with all these
Um,
like
and,
AI.
and,
Oh,
Yeah, and as we're going to be talking later in the session about the GTM Compass and the perspective, or before the GTM, the perspective, the account-based perspective, that's exactly the main differentiator between B2B websites, for example, to B2C, where you're looking at traffic, right? So if I'm a publisher e-commerce and I have a B2C website, Google Analytics tells me a lot of what I need to know, how many people are visiting, all of that stuff. For a B2B scenario, I don't care about the traffic. I care about whether ICPs are reaching us. Are they aware of us? Are they reading our content and then converting? So it's a different question. And it requires different metrics to track in order to understand if our go-to-market is effective or not and what our gaps there are. That's why one of our key recommendations, again, not just because we are coming from an ABM perspective, but because we see it is more effective at assessing GTM effectiveness and optimizing based off of those key KPIs. So let's dive into what should we be doing in 2025? What does better mean? And we wanted to break it down into 2 parts. The first part is more foundational. How do we shift our perspective from a classic lead-based approach to an account-based approach? And why should we do this? And it's not just about our own marketing. I think a big part of this transition is our ability as marketers to communicate to leadership and to executive leadership, financial leadership, what really is happening with our go-to-market. Now, David mentioned we are in a very noisy, crowded, murky environment. I think it's our responsibility as marketers, as GTM leaders, to create clarity and a very clear picture of where we are within this noise. What really is our position and what we should be prioritizing and why we should be investing in those specific areas. Those are kind of very sometimes tough conversations because for many years, and David, we've been in this for, I don't know, 20 years or so. The role of marketing at the beginning was very simple, right? Give us the leads, throw them over the fence, and wish them luck, right? That was pretty much how we looked at ourselves and what we've done. We know that's no longer relevant or effective. We are not the lead generators. We are not just the capturers of contact information. We have to be able to really understand how our go-to-market is effective and do this with sales, as a revenue organization, with a whole go-to-market team. And then we need to have one view that we can all agree on. It's not about, hey, I've done my part, now sales, you go to yours. What is one picture that sales, marketing, CROs can look at and say, is our work successful, right? Are we actually getting to where we need to be? So we're going to be talking about that and that shift, and how to bring it into the organization, because a big challenge is going to be educating the organization about these types of shifts.
Yeah, and it's so fundamental too, because like especially as you're talking about that funnel, like yeah, you can get into these debates over who owns what part of it. But it's like if I guess I'm watching Severance, so a lot of split brain references are top of mind, and if you see those the sales and the marketing side of the brain inside an org, even in a very small org, not talking to each other, then it's like it just doesn't work, right? And so it's like you need to
Yep.
connect, and it gives an opportunity for marketers to have more demonstrate more of the impact on sales, and sales to show that like they're able to go and harness marketing in a way that works for them, and it's like I love scenarios like that.
Yeah, I think we're way past the credit wars, right? We're way past, the fact that, who brought what, because there's so many touch points, there's so many interactions. And I actually am very, I think that the role of marketers, or of communicators, is so much greater today. Their responsibility for go-to-market success is so much greater than it used to be, in creating that voice, and really be able to connect with different audiences, versus kind of what it used to be, which is more of an operational, right? Kind of just do, set up the event, set up the capturing or the tech. No, are we actually connecting with our target audience effectively over time? And we're going to be talking about why that matters so much. So maybe a word of optimism, because marketing has always been kind of being picked on, right, by the bullies of the board. Why not delivering? Where's the pipeline? I think they're now able to step up, but they should be stepping up, and claiming, right, their role there. So let's jump to the first thing, is the shift in perspective that I would like you all to think, and some of you are probably doing it, some of you may are looking at how to go about it. But if we're looking at it from an account-based lens, we always have flow of accounts that are going to go into market. So you can think of it as kind of our pipeline. So just taking a schematic view of how many companies are actually interested to buy. The classic stat that everybody's quoting is only 5% of your addressable market is going to be actually seeking a solution for the problem that you're solving, right? So it's going to be a very narrow margin. It's like trying to really kind of snipe to that point. And so when we talk about the classic lead-based approach, the big challenge that we're seeing, that when you get really good, effective leads, they're actually coming after the company has already decided who they're going to buy from and who they're going to engage with. Now, that's not just our data. This is 6sense data. This has been said by also other platforms, and research papers. So what's actually happening is that the lead that we used to so much depend on is now a lagging indicator of go-to-market success, as opposed to being a leading indicator to say, okay, what is the pipeline that we'd be expecting next quarter or next half a year? And that's a big problem, because if we're still looking at leads, we're basically looking at the target already after it's passed, right? So it's not going to be an effective aid for us to guide our motion. So what is an effective indicator? And what we've discovered, again, going to first-party data, and we're not talking even about external intent and about any kind of very sophisticated solutions, looking at qualified companies that are visiting, how many of them are engaged, but not just engaged in general with our content, engaged also with product-related pages on our site, pricing, competitor comparisons, and so forth. And they're actually the new leading indicator. The engaged qualified account, what we call the EQA, is really what we feel is the new metric to be tracked, to be analyzed, and that can help us predict future pipeline success. And so what does that all mean in terms of our own go-to-market, is that we need to be very clear about the transition, that leads are no longer leading indicators. There's been a lot of talk about the death of, I'm not a big fan of the killing of stuff, right? Of MQL, of SEO. There's, we love killing off stuff always. But I'm not saying that there is no role for leads. There's role for leads for, I would say it's more in the realm of getting consent for communication than as an indicator of intent to buy, which is probably what it used to be. But we have been chasing those KPIs, and we've also been educating leadership. Like, look, we're going to be generating those leads, and those leads are going to go into SQL. And John Miller has had all these posts that talking about how we educated leadership about the gumball machine, that we're just going to be bringing in the leads and you're going to get predictable revenue. And that was very easy for, now I'm speaking from like a CEO perspective. It's a very easy sell, right? Because it's volume based. Just give me the MQLs and I know how many sales I'm going to have. It's very tempting to get into that approach.
Yeah,
But it just doesn't work, right? It doesn't.
and we do have a few great questions coming in. Lisa wants to know, what is the evidence that captured leads have already made their purchase decision?
So when we're talking about the de-anonymization stage, so when we're looking at the buyer journey from an account perspective, and the way that we go about it is we look at the company from the first time they entered the websites, the point that there's somebody that filled the form, and then what is the next that we see a sales opportunity associated with that company. And so what we are seeing is that point that they're booking the demo or signing up is very close to that point that they're already generating that opportunity, as opposed to when we actually started seeing the company engage in deeper ways with the content. And that's what we're saying. And it's not just us, also Sixth Sense research talks about that when the company is, or when the buyer is engaging, they're already 80% there. And the first one that they're going to engage with is probably the one they're going to buy with. And they also have a prior knowledge of them. So there's this combination of, I know who I'm going to buy from. I want to research on my own. The fact that I filled the form on the site doesn't tell the seller really about true intent. And this is what we're trying to uncover. Which companies are really interested in moving forward, and where should we prioritize our efforts? That's the main objective, right? To know which companies deserve our attention, as opposed to those who have already made it up or not relevant or not in that buying stage.
Right. And then the one other question came in from Andrew is, what's the data you're looking at for the EQAs?
Oh, great question. So what we're looking at is a combination of number of people from a given company. So what we're saying is that for a company to show intent, we need number of people, right? We need to see a committee forming, right? On one hand, so we want to look at a number of people. We typically look at it as low as two. So as low as two people from the same company already kind of crosses the threshold of engagement. And then the engagement piece is we want to see them in a period of about 90 days. Again, depending on the product, depending on what you're selling, it could be 30 days, 90 days, maybe longer if it's a really long enterprise sale. We want to see actual reads of content on the website where some of that content is indicative of buyer intent. Now that sounds very kind of difficult and heavy lifting, but eventually when you think about it, it's just connecting or tagging certain pages on your site as high intent pages, understanding who is visiting, and then being able to say, okay, now I have these numbers of EQA, and I can slice them based on ICPs, industries, and so forth. So we're looking at that combination of engagement. It doesn't need to be rocket science. And let me tell you, a lot of companies are not doing anything. So as long as you're doing something, you're going to be better than, I'd say, 90% of the companies out there. It's not about crushing it. It's just about doing things in steps, gaining confidence, and then moving forward and shifting the focus to a different set of KPIs that we've been educated and educating to use over time.
This is great. And then and Mike had a question that I feel like is comfort. I've often wondered when looking at tech and data like this. Can you speak to the de-anonymization for a moment? How accurate or confident are you in this process? Does it tend to be more accurate for some types of companies than others?
Yeah. So great question. I think that what we're seeing is that, of course, it depends, right, on the geos that you're targeting, on the types of companies that you're looking after, their size. Um, but if we just want to have like a bit of benchmarks of what we could be, of what we're seeing, and there's always this asterisk that you don't know what you don't know, right? So if you're anonymizing a certain amount of traffic and you're not de-anonymizing the rest, you don't know it's because if they're from valid companies or if they're not valid or relevant at all. So we always have to understand that. But if we still take that into account, in US, Europe, we're looking about 60% coverage, sometimes even 70. So we have a decent amount of coverage with the de-anonymization. So like I said, we're using 6sense, but other vendors offer those different solutions. So there's a good amount of coverage. It's of course never absolute. People are going to be browsing from mobile from different places. It's not going to be 100%, which is also why we don't need to only look at kind of a company level de-anonymization, but we also need to de-anonymize on personas. And I'm going to show you in a bit how we do this with a GTM Compass, how we can understand personas visiting the site or create different audiences that we can look at. There is a big group of families that is person level de-anonymization, like RB2B. There are solutions that help you understand a specific visitor coming into the site. Only in the US, I know. I think the big problem there, and this is just maybe going a bit to a rant, but whenever new technology comes in, like, hey, we can show you specifically which people are visiting your site, uh, marketers have this tendency to abuse the hell out of it. And I think that that's something we've been seeing all the time, right? Email came along. I'm sure like a week after email was invented, the first spam campaign came along. So we need to be very aware that these new technologies are also could be risky and they could be also damaging our relationship. So if I'm a visitor and I visit your site and you know who I am, I don't want to be getting an email from you, right? Because I was reading some thought leadership information. That's really not a very good practice or process. So I think when we
Yeah.
talk about de-anonymization, even if I were to give you the full blown, it's about how do you use this information intelligently to support a buyer journey rather than to go into the kind of that spam approach of, yeah, let's meet, let's talk. I want to sell you.
I mean, I'm so glad you brought that up because this is also something that I feel like so many folks on the marketing side, I'm always wondering about this. It's like when am I not being aggressive enough? And I think like most marketers in forums like this are actually lean a bit more toward the cautious side. They don't want to piss off their prospects, and often get pressure from sales or the founder to do so. But many are also like, am I not taking advantage of the tools at my disposal? And like, should I be reaching out to them when they've just given me like 1% of interest in what I'm doing? And like, am I
Right.
missing that opportunity?
Yeah, I think the role or the responsibility is also on leadership, not just GTM, not just marketers. When CEOs, CROs are pressuring into short-term outcomes and they're screaming, "Where are my leads?" Marketers are going to go and they're going to do that abuse because guess what? They want to prove, they want to bring, they want to kind of get to those KPIs. The truth is, they could be doing a much more damage longer term by abusing those relationships, by not building trust, which takes more time. Trust is much harder to demonstrate and show leadership. I can't show that a certain company is trusting me. It's harder. I can show statistics that they're engaged. But I think it's not just about the marketers. It's about leadership in general, GTM leadership, being responsible when they're going after attention, when they're capturing attention, understanding what the fact that, let's admit it, the power is in the hands of the buyer. No amount of phone calls, emails is going to change my mind of when to buy, from who to buy, and what do I need, right? That's not going to change. So we have to find a way to work with them as opposed to kind of shove it down their throat. Um, and I think that's a great segue to kind of what are we going to do to address those
Right.
challenges into 25, right? So there's a lot of challenges. What I wanted to do is to break up the big problem of how to engage with buyers and support their journey into bits that I feel maybe are more digestible because it does feel like an overwhelming problem, right? So let's break it down to its kind of components that also relate to the data that I shared earlier. So how do we address anonymity, right? What do we suggest or recommend to overcome this anonymity. It's not just it's something, as we said, it's continuing. It's going to get worse depending on where you stand, right? So the first thing, the lowest hanging fruit I would recommend is use de-anonymization at the account level. Now, Trendemon offers it. There's a bunch of others. It's not about a vendor or a specific tool or even just a coverage. It's about doing something which is better than nothing. I always say to see with one eye is still better than to be completely blind. So that's definitely something that needs to be brought into very, very early to start giving that view and to start answering the very fundamental questions. The first one I would use this to answer is our ICP aware of us? It's such a fundamental question, and there is first-party data that can answer it, but it's not being utilized. So account level de-anonymization, definitely the first place to start uncovering that. And it also lives well with privacy concerns, because I'm not de-anonymizing individual. I'm not individualizing. I'm not exposing PII. This is account level, company level, IP based. So that's one thing. The second thing, maybe a bit counterintuitive, is ungate. Ungate your content, right? The more gates you put, the less people are going to trust you, trust your content, and then be willing to give you information when they are ready. For example, signing up to your subscription list or newsletter, right? So that's another thing that we recommend. There are places, of course, specific that gating is helpful, but in general, I think when you have to move away from, hey, you want to see our, benchmarks report, give us information. It's completely ineffective trying to get them to consume as much information with as little friction, and now you're putting gates. So guide, don't gate. That's a takeaway.
Yeah, can I just ask
and then building trust. Yeah.
And just a quick follow-up because it relates to B and C here, where I could see marketers getting a lot of pushback on that point. And my big question for you is if someone doesn't have de-anonymization tech and is to work with someone like you and partners, competitors that offer that, would you still
Yeah.
recommend keeping content ungated? Like if you still don't have that data on who these people are?
Completely. We cannot fight the buying power, the power of the buyer journeys, the fact that they're buyer led. And I think that's a disservice. So we're creating amazing content, but now we're getting a fraction of the visibility that it can be served. So even if you don't have that, still the recommendation sticks, stays. I think marketers, instead of trying to think of themselves as pushers of leads down a funnel, like forcing them, I'm going to get all that information. You are the removers of barriers. Just remove barriers. Be very, very easy to work with, easy to understand, easy to educate and connect with. That will be so much more effective than kind of, okay, let's just shove more and more leads into that because, we don't have that tech. And just to put in context, it's very cheap tech today. It's a commodity. You don't have to go and buy, very expensive tech. So it's more about priorities and decisions rather than actual finance there, I would say, right? And so we talked about anonymity, buying committee, right? The buying committee, we talked about 15 people. It's a very big challenge. How do we address that? I think it starts with being mindful that you're going to have different personas, visitors looking to answer different pain points, and just making sure that your content supports those different buyer persona journeys throughout your website, throughout your first party content. Then specifically with Trendemon, but there are other tools that can do this. You can start building audiences based off of insights that you have. Let me give you an example. So let's say you ran a campaign on LinkedIn that's directed to, let's say, CFOs. They came to your site. You can build an audience, which is a persona-based audience off that, and look at how they're converting, what they're reading. So, and this goes to your point about what if I don't have de-anonymization at the account level? Well, you can still uncover the persona level, which is, I would say, just as important, right? Because if your website is completely optimized for persona, guess what? You're 90% there. It's still much better than having no personalization there at all, or no contextualization. And personalized experience, and here I just want to emphasize, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about personalization. It feels like I need to show to you, I know exactly who you are, right? So you come into the website, I show you your company name or your logo and even your name, and we feel like, hey, that's personalization. No, Personalization is deeper, is understanding what will help you take the best decision, even if that decision isn't engaging with us because you understand we are not the right fit. And guess what? That's exactly quality over quantity. So instead of just capturing leads, you throw them over the fence. Sales would say, this is complete crap. You want those people to self-educate, to self-assess, and then engage when they understand that this is really kind of the direction that they want to go with. And then the challenge, the attention challenge, right? So we have Q Dory here. We're all goldfish. It's not just buyers, sellers. We all don't have a lot of attention. I think there was a question earlier about video content. So definitely the more dynamic, interactive content that we have, better we stand a chance to punch through the attention barriers. So creating that content to engage buyers, and then kind of using visuals, calls for action, being very clear about where you want to lead them. So to your point, David, where should marketers be aggressive? They should be aggressive about really recommending offers and content that will help their buyers. That's where I would be aggressive, right? That's something that if I can help you make a decision easier as a buyer, the buyer would appreciate it. They won't appreciate it if you're gonna kind of put gates on my way to see a demo, to see this information, and so forth. And we're speaking about AI here, right? The AI community. And this is something we're super excited about because AI gives us, on one hand, the opportunity to repurpose a lot of our content to tailor it to specific personas or industries at scale and do an amazing job there, without creating a lot of noise. And we have to be very aware that it's not just about churning more and more content. It's about really tailoring journeys for specific personas, and AI is a really powerhouse for that. But for the other side, AI is also a way for us to uncover intent, uncover interests by understanding our content better and the interactions of audiences with that to be able to drive better personalization in real time. And I'm going to show you some examples of that just in a minute. So before we dive in, David, I had a very special offer we wanted to share with the community, which is called the GTM Compass. Essentially for companies who are interested in exploring an ABM perspective on their site. This solution is basically part of our analytics layer, which we're offering community members to take us on this offer. It will help you de-anonymize incoming traffic, like I said, powered by 6sense data, understand channel performance, content performance, and look at actual buyer journeys. We're going to see that in a way. And it's free. So you don't have to start with kind of massive, expensive solutions of trying to convince leadership, but it could help you build the case of why should we prioritize certain directions, methodologies, approaches in 25. All right. So David, I think we can maybe go into just a quick demo. I know we have
love to see it.
a few minutes. All right, awesome. So just to give a bit of context about the platform itself before we dive in, because David mentioned that you guys love to see tech and understand it. So just a bit of what is Trendemon, how it's built, and then what is the GTM Compass made from. So Trendemon is an extensive platform for website experience optimization. It has two main components or two main layers. We have the intelligence layer, which helps with de-anonymization, journey mapping, content performance, and basically understanding what's the ROI for your website. We also have the ability to send real-time alerts to SDRs, to AEs, and so forth. But this is an enabling layer to the activation layer, which sits on top of it, which is page-level optimization. So helping you understand or personalize elements within a given page to different verticals, industries, accounts, and so forth. And of course, do A/B testing as well. Journey level optimization. How do we know which content to serve them next on the website as they're landing, inbound, outbound, all those activities. And then, of course, sales engagement. How do we equip our SDRs, BDRs with the best relevant assets for every account and do this at scale, which is that big challenge. So the reason I wanted to share this is that this underlying layer is basically the GTM Compass. So the GTM Compass is something that is very easily installed on the website. This is an example, and this is an open demo account. So actually, I can go ahead and just share it. I think even in the chat, so you can just check it out. yourselves and play around with it. You don't even have to sign up. Talking about gates, we're we're doing this as well. So none of it is gated. All of it is on our website. But what does the GTM Compass do, and how can it help us? So setting up, very simple. You put it on your Google Tag Manager or directly on your website. You can connect it to your marketing automation or your CRM to start getting more deeper conversion points. For example, whether a contact became an MQL or an SQL as a goal, or whether a company reached a pipeline stage, any pipeline stage, right, down to close one. So basically, you can connect Trendemon to the website and then to your stack. And what we will be able to tell you, the second thing is creating different segments. So let's say you're selling to different industries or you have different products, and you want to understand how different segments behave and convert, and what they're doing actually with your first party data, with your content, with your website. So what we can show here is how many companies have visited in a given time frame, how many of them reached that prestige stage. Remember the metrics I shared? This is essentially giving you the data to compare yourself and see where are we compared to the benchmarks of prestige, high intent, conversions, and so forth. Is our website operating at peak performance, or do we have some bottlenecks that we need to address in the journey? Because guess what? Your website is going to be one of your primary assets to drive those pipeline conversions. A lot of the information, people are going to find it on your site. Most of them, by the way, going to be anonymous. So the leads are not going to help you there. But that's the top view. Then we drill down and we can actually show you which specific companies we're visiting at which stage. So how many companies from a given vertical, right, are at high intent. And I can look at those companies, and I'm going to drill down in just a sec and show you what we can learn about each company as well. From the content perspective, this is something that I've been struggling with a long time during my times at the agency. How do we demonstrate the ROI of content? It's always murky. It's always difficult. Why should we invest in this? Especially now, it's so easy and cheap to create so much content. But again, this is counterintuitive because what we're actually doing, without being mindful and purposeful, we're just creating more noise. So we're just erecting more barriers for our buyers. So things are kind of becoming counterintuitive. It's really easy to create content, but that content could be damaging us as well. And so what you can see here is for every stage, for every segment, and every deal, you can see how different pages have contributed to pipeline deals being generated or closed, which companies have read those specific pages. You can see a drill down of those companies. So starting to get an account-based lens to your go-to-market, as well as channel performance. Okay, so looking at which traffic sources, which campaigns are driving your ICPs, your high-intent ICPs, or different verticals from different channels and so forth. So that's kind of the top view there of the GTM Compass. But now we're getting into the account level and also more into the AI part of it, which we're super excited. This was launched just last month. Part of those components, like the autopilot, were launched last month. And some of it we've been doing for the good part of 24. But what this view actually shows us and can show you is at the company level, at the account level, how the company is actually behaving, how many people from the company are visiting, how many visits, page views, goals reached. If we go down, we have journey visualizations of all the visitors that came to our site from that specific company, known and unknown. So here for this demo purposes, we have a known visitor, but it could be an anonymous from a known company. So let's say it's somebody, we don't know who they are, but they're from Microsoft. We can look at their journey. And what we show you is which traffic sources they came from, which interactions they've had, which goals they've reached, right? So this can be integrated into HubSpot or Keto, whatever you have in your marketing automation, down to your CRM. Did they become an opportunity? Did they reach a goal of engaging with sales? So that's the data. But that's also sometimes, we talked about attention. I'm sure AEs don't have the time or attention to go and drill down into all of that. So what we've done is we've summarized all of this with ChatGPT. So we've taken all the pages and we basically said, tell us, what do you understand from that content consumption, what the account is interested in, what's their level of interest and level of intent based on the content that they've read. So as we talk about AI and leveraging it, there's a lot of focus on generation of content with AI, but I wanted to put the spotlight somewhere else. It's using AI to better listen to your audiences and your target accounts, to understand what they're actually interested in, so that when you are speaking to them, you're going to be very contextual and mindful about what they care about. And so that is the first level of using AI to uh, 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 crystallize and really kind of focus. And this can be sent back into the marketing automation or the CRM in a very clear way. So the AE can look at that and say, okay, I understand what I should be talking about them. And they, of course, can drill and look at the individual pages that they read. So that's the first step. Then we want to be able to recommend the next best content based off of what they haven't read yet and what they should be reading. And again, in a structure or in a sequence that is getting them from a more lower intent pages to higher intent, again, depending on their own stage, but already kind of taking out the guesswork of what I should be serving them in terms of content. So that is the recommendations. That's also part of the GTM Compass, David. So if you would want to understand how to structure those, you will get that with a GTM Compass. And if companies are also interested in trying activation, then of course Trendemon can automatically, and this is the demo website, can also incorporate those recommendations as companies are going to visit on the website, so they can get these very streamlined experiences of what they should be reading. So this is the stream. This is the autopilot experience. It's very seamless. You can have this Netflix effect that you can continuously binge on that content. Could be also PDF content. So that's part of the activation layer. That part is for paid plans. But you will get those recommendations from the autopilot about what we recommend to send to those prospects.
Great. Yeah. I know there was a question about the content ROI tool part, just as far as whether that's part of what could be accessed for free or like what was in the paid plan.
Yeah, definitely. So if we go into the full dashboard, this is where you manage it. And again, the GTM Compass is just the front end, the access to it, but you can definitely have very cool insights. For example, how your content is impacting pipeline very easily. You can look at how your blog, for example, different areas on your site, how your blog is impacting deals at various stages. And look at the individual pages that were driving those conversions. So which pages are in charge for the majority of pipeline conversions? So that's definitely something you will be able to see. All the journeys coming through your website. So you can look at all the journeys, drill down, see kind of how they look like. And then, of course, we have the activation layer if you're looking to optimize it. But again, what I would recommend, and again, just for the next step, if you'd like to explore this, I've added the meeting link. So just book a meeting with us, and we can explain more about how to use it, how to integrate it. But you will have access to all of those insights free of charge. And it's not a free trial. This isn't something that we're saying, okay, use it for a month. As long as you're part of the community, we love David, and we want you to be able to enjoy those insights, and more importantly, make informed decisions about what to prioritize. I think that's the key takeaway. Instead of just going into 25 and saying we need to do more, it's like, no, this is what we actually seeing happening, and this is why we want to prioritize A, B, C, or D.
Well, I love when we have these Oprah moments here, and look, like I'm excited to use this stuff too, right? Like I'm a B2B marketer, and I'm dying for data like this, and like seriously, as you're talking, I just keep thinking of our clients. I'm like, oh, if only I knew this or had access to this, I just really want to blow away the sales team and show them I can. Still old marketers can learn new tricks. So this is really exciting, and we're getting some tremendous feedback. And yes, like to everyone who's on here, I know folks need to wrap, but be sending all the links. You'll get from myself and or Trendemon, and you'll get updates with how to access this, slides, video, and you'll see all this, and like there's some of it really like there's like a head of sales I work with. I'm going to insist he watch this too. Like I want to get him excited.
Amazing. Amazing. And of course, if there are growth expert agencies that want to connect with us, we have a partner program. Very excited to partner. That's our main go-to-market through communities like David's and through partnerships. So do reach out to us. I have the link below. Me or somebody from my team would love to jump on a call. And just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity, for the tremendous kind of participation of the community. And looking forward to doing more and stuff together in
Okay,
25. So thank you again.
yeah, anytime I get to learn as much as this, I want to do more too. So thanks, and look forward to having you. And I know Tal and others on your team are in the community, and so just great to have you involved. And yeah, I'm looking forward to learn way more. So,
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Have a rest of your day.
hey, thanks so much, everyone, for joining, and yeah, all the amazing questions too. There's just I always love when we have more questions than time, and definitely hit that again. So everyone has a great day, and look forward to some updates very soon with all the materials.
Bye bye.
All right, thank you so much.